So let's take a step back. Let's start from like not quite the beginning, but what got you interested in investing? Like, I understand you played professional hockey at like the highest level. You were already making a lot of money, more money than a lot of people will ever see.
Yeah, I wasn't making, like I'd say I had a cup of coffee. Like at a young age, I was a pretty good hockey player, and ended up getting drafted to the Toronto Maple Leafs in '96, and I ended up going there and had a pretty decent camp. And it's funny looking back when I think I was 18 years old and looking like, and now I'm 40. Actually, I'm 41 tomorrow, but
Happy birthday.
yeah, totally. So, but looking back to what I was doing when I was 18, 19 years old, like I just never wasn't thinking about much. And so I had a cup of coffee with the Maple Leafs, and I ended up getting I had a run of concussions. So I had a handful of concussions. I think I had about 4 in a year, and then I had about 8 in maybe 3 years. And back
That's
in the day, it was a messed up time. And so the NHL had a rule back then: if I had too many concussions, or if you had X amount of concussions, you have to take these tests. And I ended up failing the test. And so I went back to school and, kind of did, the poor dad stuff, rich dad, poor dad, right? And I kind of went back to school and to get grades and, just go get a job. And then I ended up doing that. And then I ended up getting another shot at the NHL. I got a free agent tryout with the Oilers, who sent me down to Hamilton. And I actually, in Hamilton, I was faced with my first business decision. When I got hurt the first time, I had an insurance policy on myself that I ended up cashing out. And when I went back to play hockey, if I played 11 games, I had to repay this money. And unfortunately, I spent most of the money. And so I couldn't go play hockey. So I ended up quitting hockey and came home and started buying real estate. So to answer your question, what got us into real estate was actually my wife. My friend at the time, Patrick Francie, who is now the owner of the Real Estate Investment Network. Patrick invited us to a weekend event back in the day Rain was putting on called Quick Start. And we went to this event, and I had no interest in being there. I had no interest in real estate, to be honest with you. And we went to this 3-day event, and on Sunday, my wife signed us up when I was out for lunch, and I came back and we were signed up and committed to the 17-month program. And that's how we got started in real estate. I was forced to do it.
What year was that?
True story. So that was 2003. So that was October 2003.
Not a bad time to get started.
Well, back then I look at what the market did, and looking back now, we kind of rode the wave a little bit. In 2004, 2003, I bought 3 properties. We bought 3 properties. In 2004, we bought 8. In 2005, we bought 64, and we kept on going. In 2005, house prices went up 30 some odd percent. In 2006, they were 52%. In 2007, they were 38%. I was a multi-millionaire by the time I was 28 years old. I had 100 properties under my belt by the time I was 30. I had a $25 million real estate portfolio by the time I was 32. And, a lot of that was the timing of the market. A lot of it was we had the balls to go do it. Maybe the better phrase is we were naive enough to go do it. We didn't really know what we were doing, right?
Right. That's actually a bit of common story with many people who've grown large portfolios who've come on this podcast. They've been pretty frank about it too, which I appreciate. They were really more naive to know what the problems were. But then the opposite end is I have clients who are so naive they can't get past the first property or get to the second property. I was talking to a gentleman last night who is a real estate lawyer who still hasn't bought a second investment property in over a year. Right?
Yeah. It's funny you say that. Fear stops most people. And whether it's you want to lose weight, or you want to go public speak, or you want to run a race, or you want to buy real estate, fear is what actually stops most people from having any kind of success. It's the start that stops most people. And it's funny, most people, I see all these people now going around doing workshops and coaches, and they're all these people that on the front they're saying that they're doing all this stuff, like this real estate lawyer, for example. but yet behind the scenes, they're not actually buying any real estate. They actually don't own any real estate. They don't actually know how to play it. They understand the theory of it, but the practical experiences they can't implement on their own.
Right, right. I loved how Chris Hadfield, the astronaut, puts it. Like we often use fear instead of the word risk, right? Like his analogy was like legitimate risk. 1 in 38 chance that something goes catastrophically wrong when he goes to space.
Yeah.
Like that ain't fear. That is legitimate risk to you. Right?
Yeah, no, that's life or death.
Would you drive your car with those kind of risks? Something catastrophically wrong 1 in 38. Versus fear, his analogy is like spiders. People have an irrational fear of spiders. But being in Canada, there's very, very few that will actually harm you at all, period. So his analogy was walk through 100 spider webs and I'll guarantee you'll lose the fear.
You won't die.
Same thing with your investment property. But before we actually get into actual real estate stuff, what was your wife's motivation then? Why the decision to invest?
Back in the day, Krista was reading. You can ask her this yourself at some point, maybe one day. But Krista's upbringing was different than mine. My upbringing, when my dad was an accountant for the government, mom was a receptionist at a local radio or TV station. And, I was always the typical rich dad, poor dad. Like this is a total comparison to the rich dad, poor dad book. And, both parents had equal value and equal wealth and all that stuff. Like I didn't come from a poor family, but my dad was go to school, get good grades, like get your grades and get into college and go get a job and so on and so on. Krista's parents are farmers and they run a farm and they're entrepreneurs and they take risks and chances and they don't have a 9 to 5, but they work when it's needed. They rest when it's needed and allowed. And so Krista's mentality was, at the time she was reading a lot of books and all that stuff, and she just figured real estate was something that of interest to her. Right. Her mom bought her a condo in Edmonton when she moved from Grand Prairie to Edmonton. Her mom bought her a condo, went partners with it, and they made money. And Chris was like, yeah, it seemed to work. And, and at that time I was living with her. We just started dating. Well, we were ways into a relationship, but I moved in with her and I was kind of living for free and it wasn't working. It wasn't working for her. It wasn't working for me. I didn't want to pay rent with her. So it was just like, yeah, let's go buy a house together. And we didn't know what we were doing. And all of a sudden, Krista was doing some work with Stephanie, Patrick's wife. And next thing you know, we're at this rain event. And, kind of the rest is history because that's really what started the path of us on investing in real estate. We didn't really know, we just wanted to buy a house to live in and we didn't know how to do it. So we went to this workshop. Like that's the truth. That's how it started. And now we have 150 of these things.
How did you first meet Patrick and Stephanie? Francie?
Oh yeah, Francie. Yeah. So I've known them for now a long time. Years ago when I was playing hockey, I hired Stephanie as my power skating coach.
Oh, okay.
And, yeah. So she actually taught me how to skate. I've known Stephanie since I was 16 years old. And so she actually taught me how to skate. And then Stephanie went off and did some personal coaching with Olympians and stuff like that. So when I went back to play hockey, I hired her as my success coach as well as my power skating coach.
Wow.
So in turn, I got in touch with her, she got us in touch through real estate, essentially.
Very cool. That's a good relationship to have. For folks who don't know how, like the Stephanie that I knew, because I wasn't introduced to Stephanie till much later, like more like 2009ish, and by then she was already a very big ticket, personal success coach, charging like high end money, but from all accounts she well deserved it because her clients were doing well.
We've had lots of success coaches in our lives, Chris and I. Like we I have a guy out of LA right now, John Wineland. I have him as my coach right now, and Krista has a guy, and we invest a lot of time and money into ourselves. And Stephanie's great. Stephanie came into our world at the perfect time. We were getting ready to have a baby, our first kid, so we did a lot of work around that, tightening up our relationship. I wasn't the nicest guy. I for sure wasn't the nicest boyfriend or husband at the time, because I had my baggage, I had my shit, I had my stuff that I didn't really know what to do. I didn't know there'd be a different way of being, if you will. And Stephanie she's a very great human being, very great at what she does. And, like that was the starting point for our personal development growth.
Very cool. I think you're pretty lucky to have her in your life.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
Now knowing that story now, it wasn't just naivety. You had some pretty good support.
Yeah, like our circle was always good. Like I was a personal trainer. Okay, so then I come out of hockey and I go become a personal trainer, and like I truly believe that network, that experience of being a personal trainer for 7 years. I worked out at a gym in Edmonton called Custom Fit, and I was a personal trainer, and I had my own clients, and I had to build my own business. But my clients were all high income earners. They were all mid 6 figures and up, and it wasn't a common occurrence. It was a common occurrence, to see Porsches and Ferraris and Lambos, and just in the parking lot as people are working out. They're very high end earners. So I used to come to the gym and see this, and it was a totally different spin on money, and it was a totally different spin and view on how to see things in the world. So all of a sudden, my upbringing of people who have Mercedes are rich and they're assholes. That view wasn't real because I got to know these people. And I think it was that experience of hanging out with these high income earners that really it's a common saying. You want to be a millionaire, go hang out with, 7 millionaires, or go hang out with 10 of them and you're going to become a millionaire. And so I was hanging out with these multi-million-dollar people, entrepreneurs or workers or just humans, every single day of my life for 8 years. And my wife and I and she was a massage therapist in the exact same studio. So we were just, we're like rewiring our thought processes to allow for success. So when we went and bought that house, I didn't have fear around it because I've talked to, at that point in time, hundreds of conversations with people who are actually doing it.
Right.
So I was getting real practical experience and advice to build my confidence up versus reading in a book, for example.
Right. Yeah. Just recently, I bought a house without seeing it.
I do that at least once a month.
Right. But then my fault, I didn't properly communicate to my wife. And also she doesn't have the same context because, you know how this goes.
I know that one.
Because I mastermind with some folks that trade on the level of you, well, maybe not the same level as you, but some folks that trade, 2 properties a month type thing, right? So that's the norm for them, right? They get the price they want. They don't have to inspect it type thing. Because, and listeners, like, I'm not recommending that to you at all. Don't do it. Don't do what I do.
Well, I want to be crazy clear on that too, dude. I would never stand up on stage. And in fact, I have stood up on stage and said, do not buy a house without inspecting it. Just
absolutely. Absolutely.
And like what people need to understand is I have crews. I have 5 guys that work for me. And if we, for example, we bought houses before and we open up walls and there's like 200 linear feet of cracks. I can fix that for like $6-7 grand.
Right.
You go fix that, that's $25 grand.
Yeah.
So I just made those numbers up. They might not be real, but the point of the story is I can do things a lot cheaper than most people, so I can roll the dice if I get my price.
Right.
Like I just bought a house for $250,000 2 weeks ago, and it's $50,000 below market. And it was off market sale. Someone brought it to me, so we bought it. Man, I got tons of room. Like I got $100,000 of retail or $80,000 of retail pricing to go, to play with. Like but I highly recommend people don't do that. It's
absolutely. Risky. I don't recommend anyone do that.
Totally.
And then I did it. I had it inspected the next week, right? Because the deal was so good, I was willing to go without it. I had pictures. Basement was unfinished, so I had pictures, right?
Yeah.
So there's no critical issues. And then I was able to budget for anything that would be critical, right? So I've been around long enough to know what could really go bad, and I budgeted for it, right? So that's why I'm able to do that. I didn't do a good enough job conveying that to my wife, so she was not happy with me at all.
It's funny. My wife she's gotten smart, and she's always been smart, but she's wording things like, I'll go buy a house, and she'll come up to me and say, hey, Jared, that's great. You bought a house. That's great. I know you will never do anything to jeopardize our family.
Oh, same.
So no, this is what she says to me. So I trust that every decision you make will be in the context of protecting our family. Mm-hmm. Now that puts a lot of pressure on me.
Oh, totally.
So, so now it's like, because before she used to get mad. She used to want numbers. I'd have to get approval. She would go through our ringer, right? Mm-hmm. And where now it's as simple as, listen, I trust that what you're doing is going to, protect our family, and you'll never put our family at risk financially, mm-hmm. energetically, emotionally, anything. And if that's true, you can buy the house. Mm-hmm. So now it really puts pressure on me to make sure that I'm bringing the right properties, I'm doing the right deals with the right people at the right time, all the
mm-hmm.
time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, completely agree with that. And when I'm representing someone as an agent, absolutely you have to inspect it. We'll even get the inspector to come before you write the offer, and then you're on your own if you want to go without an inspection.
Yeah, totally. Like in a hot market like what you guys are seeing in Toronto, we saw it in Alberta, and we'll see it again at some point. And like you can still do inspections. You can still write an unconditional offer. You can still do the inspection before you write the offer.
Yeah, exactly.
There's ways to do it. Bring them in when you do your showing, or your walkthrough. There's so many different tricks that you can implement to get you to get you the house at an unconditional offer if you have to do it.
Right. And I had a previous guest as well, and he's a computer engineer, so he's not like a home engineer or structural engineer, anyways. But he had lost on enough multiple offers that he just read like a home inspector's book cover to cover. I've done the same thing. I read a Carson Dunlop book cover to cover. I know enough, right? Mm-hmm. You still need your checklists, and you still need a lot more experience than I have. But again, I'm comfortable with me doing it with my money. But again, that's enough of that. That's enough. Totally. So we talked earlier about like growing fast. Like you like meteoric rise for your portfolio size. What were the learning lessons on scaling that?
Oh my God!
Because even going from like 1 to 3 to 10 properties, like the staffing requirements, and then I'm assuming at one point you probably brought everything in house as well. But you said you have your own construction folks. You didn't start that way with your first property.
No, like I remember when we bought our first one, $147,000, and we were going to live in it. We lived upstairs, rented out the basement. My total mortgage, taxes, insurance, all my bills were $850 a month. Plus utilities. I rented out the basement for $550. We took on a roommate for $300, so there was my $850, and then we split the utilities, 50-50 with the guy in the basement. So we literally lived for $150 a month. It was awesome, and we didn't know what we didn't know. Like, as much as we joined a real estate group, there really wasn't individual education. There really wasn't individual support. There really wasn't someone holding my hand. Mm-hmm. We would go listen to a speaker talk for 30 minutes, and he could only go so deep into a conversation because it's impossible to talk for with any substance in 30 minutes. So they'd skim the surface, and they would leave. And then my wife and I would sit there, make all our notes, and they would try to go implement whatever we heard. But along the way, there was a disconnect because there was a lot of information being missed, but we didn't know that because we don't know what we don't know. And so we went and built this business so we got to 13 properties on our own. Now, back in the day, everyone needs to remember, back in the day, you could walk into the bank and they would be like this with their eyes closed, and they would hand you a mortgage document. Like, it was unbelievable.
The good days.
And, totally. I know, right? But, so to go buy as many properties as we have now would be almost impossible on your own. And not that I did it on my own. I had a bunch of joint ventures as well. But we got to 13 properties on our own. And from 13 on, we're all joint venture partners. 13 to about 100, we're all joint venture partners. And I remember I was in the gym running I had a client on the treadmill, and my client comes out to me and she's like, yeah, my husband wants to meet with you. And I've shared this story before. And she's like, my husband wants to meet with you. I went and met with him, and at that second cup, a couple of days later, and he gave me $750,000. And so all of a sudden my business went from, turning at a moderate level to pop. And so from there, from the next 6 months, I bought 13 properties, or 4 months, I bought 13 properties. And then another guy showed up and gave me $1 million. And another guy showed up for 800, another guy for 600, another guy for 400. And all of a sudden my business.
Where are you finding these people? I'm sure listeners want to know. It's all the gym. You just blew up that gym subscription base.
No, like one of them was from the gym, and then people just started showing up, and it's like I teach this stuff now. Like I have coaching programs now that I teach this stuff, and there's other people doing joint venture stuff. Some differences between me and anybody else out there is I actually do it, and I actually own a lot of real estate. And there's the concept of teaching from theory, and there's the concept from teaching from practical experience. Mm-hmm. And if you want to be a plumber, you don't go to university. If you want to be a plumber, you go to a trade school. Mm-hmm. And all the trade schools are being taught by ex-plumbers. They're ex-marketing people. They're ex-accountants. They're ex-XX. And I'm just one of those people. Like I'm teaching the stuff that I'm actually doing. And even to this day, I can still attract a joint venture partner in the high six figures. My following's a lot different. Like I can put a post on Facebook, for example, and all of a sudden get a bunch of feedback. I'm assuming this podcast will generate some calls. I'm not looking for joint venture partners anymore, so I want to be clear on that. But I do everything on my own now. But so when we're starting to build this business, we're building it not from foundation to result. We're building it from result. We're building it this way. So our foundation was like this, and we wanted all these results. We wanted, so as fires started happening, our business started rocking back and forth. Mm-hmm. To the point where it was imploding as we were growing. We were growing so rapidly that all of the, but here's the thing, dude, it was a different time. Like rents were going up $300-400 a month on turnover. Mm-hmm. Vacancy rate went from 4.5% down to like -2%. It was, we were seeing house prices going up 55%. We were seeing, like, the market was different. So all my mistakes were not being seen, because they were being hidden by all the successes of the market, of the economy. Yep. So, it wasn't until 2008 when we hit the global recession showed up. That's when all of our mistakes that we made from the previous 5 years showed up all at once. To the point where in 2010 we almost went bankrupt. Like I was seriously 2 months away from going bankrupt in 2010. So there's lots of lessons in there, and, we can have a 4-hour podcast and I can go over all those lessons. There's just so many lessons from buying the right property, follow the right people. Don't take what people are saying from stage as gospel. That's not the word of the book. And the mistake that, people got to understand, there are all these groups that bring up people, they're not necessarily the experts. They don't necessarily know what they're doing. They're just doing the best they can, and it's up to us to look behind what's behind that to determine how does it fit and serve me to give me the best result. Mm-hmm. The number one mistake I did in real estate is I wasn't following any particular person that had success. I was following the concept of success in real estate. I was following the theory of it, but no one was actually holding my hand saying, do this, do this, do this. Watch out for that. Watch out for that. Oh, there's a landmine over there. Don't go that way. Yeah. If you buy this house, this is what's going to happen in 10 years to you.
Because I know so many people, there's not that many people who get that to that level, like 50 properties plus. Mm-hmm. And they all have massive, massive problems.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable the problems we have. In 2010, true story, in 2010, I hit an all-time low. By 2008, I had $500,000 cash in my house, in my safe. And I was flush with cash in my bank account. My portfolios were good. I sold a couple houses. I banked some money. By 2010, rents were dropping significantly. In 2008-9, obviously we had a global recession. Rents were dropping $300-400 a month. Now back then I was being taught and told, I shouldn't say that. How I was hearing it, I was supposed to be buying, and it was okay for me to be buying properties that were cash flowing $50 to $100 a month. That's how I heard it. Whether that's what they were saying on stage, I don't know. I have no recordings of it. That's just what I heard. That's how I heard the 30-minute presentation. And so I went off and bought all these properties that were 10, 15 years old, and they were cash flowing $50 to $100 a month. And it was cool. It was good. Cash flow, rent started going up. All of a sudden, my cash flow went up. By 2008, all my rents dropped 30 to 40%. Vacancy rate went from 0% to 18.5%. I was losing $18,000 to $20,000 a month. In 2008, I was a personal trainer. In July 2008, I left my job as a personal trainer. I made about $150,000 that year. I left my job to do full-time real estate. In August 2008, global recession hit. And I was taking a pay cut every single month. So here's the true story. 2010, I was in Safeway. I went to Safeway down the street from my house. I had a Porsche 911. I had a Porsche 911 C4S Carrera. I paid $120,000 for that car. And I went into Safeway and I do my groceries, grab all the groceries, throw them all on the belt. And the lady comes up and she's like $178. And I said, okay, great, no problem. Here's my credit card. Here's my credit card, declined. Another credit card, declined. Oh, you know what? My wife probably forgot to pay it. Listen, I forgot my PIN. So sorry. Here's my bank card, declined. And I ended up calling my dad, and I'm like, Dad, listen, I can't. I'm in Safeway. Can you pay this bill? I got little kids. I got diapers. I got all kinds of stuff on this bill. So Dad pays the bill. 2 weeks later, so I walk out, take all the groceries, put them into my $120,000 Porsche 911, right? That I can't pay $178, $179 grocery bill. Put it all into my 911, drive home. Snap on my wife. Krista, this is bullshit. What the hell? Oh my God, don't ever embarrass me. You got to make sure you're paying. That's your job. My job is to buy the houses, blah, blah, blah. And so we have, a fight, right? 2 weeks later, back at Safeway, ring up the groceries, $156, and decline. Exact same thing. Manager comes up to me, puts his arm around me. He's like, listen, I saw you in here 2 weeks ago. I got this one. Whenever you can pay it back, just come back and pay me. So he paid it. Yeah, true story. He paid it. I walk out of the Safeway bawling. My top is down on my 911 and it's black, it's dark out, top's down, I'm bawling, take my groceries. I drove out that day. I called my lawyer. It's like 10 o'clock at night. I call my accountant, and I'm like, Wayne, I'm going bankrupt. I maybe have 2 months before I start going delinquent on payments. I'm screwed. And so anyway, the next couple of days later, I have a meeting with my lawyer and my accountant, and we just come up with some ideas. And I was very good at real estate. I was very good at property management. I ran a tight portfolio. Other people were suffering, so I went into property management. And that's the first generation of my property management division. That came in 2010. That division restarted my my path, or my car, if you will, back to success. I sold my Porsche, I sold my trailer, I sold my quads, I sold my boat, I sold everything. My only saving grace was I paid everything cash. So I was able to liquidate it super quick. And with that and the startup of the new business, the first generation of Tilt Property Management, now here's where we are. We've totally changed the way we do our business now. We've changed the way we buy. We've changed how we refinance. We've changed what we do with our cash flow. We've changed everything, which is absolutely 100% opposite than anything I've ever been taught.
That's the good stuff.
Yeah, dude. That's like, here's the thing. I'm a way better and smarter investor today because of that experience back in Safeway.
It's crazy. You hit rock bottom. Not quite.
I know.
Rock bottom. You're still worth a lot of money.
Well, no, but here's the thing.
Cash poor.
on paper, I had millions.
Yeah.
On paper, it was millions, but I couldn't have sold it. I couldn't have sold it fast enough to get myself out of it. Mm-hmm. So we literally instantly just started up a property management company, ran some ads, started taking on clients. I was heavily involved in RAIN at that time. Mm-hmm. So I used the stage a little bit to build my persona, my image as the manager, got clients and started building our business to the point where 2-3 years later, I now have a very strong, viable property management company. This was back in 2013 in Edmonton. That was the changing of the game. And it took me out of living off my real estate portfolio to retiring off my real estate portfolio.
This is awesome. I have so many questions. Because one of my criteria, and I believe it's your criteria as well, is a real estate expert has to have been through a cycle, right? There's all these people like this cycle's been like 12 years, right? We haven't really we had a small correction. It wasn't that bad. 13, 17%. Really, it's not that bad because
Yeah.
we're back on the up already, right? It didn't
Yeah.
last that long. But you actually, like in the West, and sorry, specifically Alberta, you guys had a much more significant correction in the last 12 years.
Correct.
Ontario,
With that.
BC hasn't really had that. Like we had like,
Well, BC's kind of going through it now a little bit.
that's because it got so high.
Yeah, it got so high, and then the government came in, raised rates, and then the mortgage qualifying, rules, and so there's some things there that's starting to cool it off.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, man, like I'm just very grateful for all the lessons that I've learned, or all the lessons that we have taught ourselves over the years, because I just wouldn't have got the experience any other way.
Let's dig into it.
Like, you say, hang on, you said, I lost my train of thought there because I started rambling a little bit, but I'm like, it's back. But you said one of the criteria is that you look for an investor that, a mentor that's been through a cycle. At
a minimum, you have to be a full through cycle, up and down.
I would say at least 2 cycles. And because each cycle is different. And so if they haven't been through at least 2 cycles, and not only that, if they're not actively buying real estate today, do not follow them, because how it was done 10, 15 years ago is a totally different way of doing it today. Banks are different. Values are different. Qualifying is different. Rents are different. Finding tenants are different. Tenant profiles are different. Areas are different. To follow someone that hasn't bought a property since 2000, I don't care if they have 175 or 300. If they haven't done it in 15, 18 years, they're not the people to follow.
Especially if they're not in your market. It's tough.
Totally.
That's tough. Because I don't try to talk about Alberta or talk to BC, or I don't really try to talk that much out of my city.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well, because you're an expert in your area. Like, I've watched you for years grow your business and, network and now you're podcasting, you're still growing. You're playing the game. But you've decided to be an expert in a certain field, in a certain arena, versus trying to be an expert, in everything. Be great at what you know.
I like to be a little bit knowledgeable what's going on in Oshawa, because I have friends out there. They tell me I'm not the expert. I'm the student.
Yeah, absolutely.
But there's so much gold out of what you shared. Like you said, you couldn't sell your houses fast enough. For people who haven't been through a down cycle, what was like the days on market? If you wanted to sell a house when you were at the Safeway, how long would it have taken you to sell a house?
It probably would have took me, well, it all depends. Because I would have, greed would have kept me in. Greed and being naive would have said, listen, instead of selling it for 300, or instead of selling it for 250 just to move it and take your $50,000, but it's worth 300, I would have came in at 300, right? Whereas if me at 41 was sitting with my younger self at, 2008, that's 10 years ago, at 31, I would have said, listen, you have these 4 properties, you have $400,000 in here, let's lowball them, put them on the market $20,000 lower. Yeah. You're going to lose $80,000, but you're walking out with 420 or 320, whatever the number is, and go protect yourself. Don't worry about trying to save the 80 grand.
Right.
But I didn't know that back then. So I sat there and I looked. That was one of the first things we did, is we sat down with my accountant. Love my accountant, but he's an accountant. And, so he's sitting there saying, if you sell this house at this lot, you now have this lot and you're leaving this. So his numbers his rationale was, I'm losing money, which went into my brain of, I can't sell these houses now because I'm going to lose money. But I'm still I wasn't going to lose money. I'm still going to make 20, 30 grand. I might not have made 50. You know what I mean? And,
but you have cash too.
Well, that's what I mean. I need money to live. And, I'm not kidding you, man. My wife Krista was talking about going to work at Starbucks. She was talking about going back to massage. We had 2 little kids. We were talking about getting my parents to watch the kids during the day so we can work. Our world was spinning out of control. And, so it was just really hard to move a property mentally to move it, because I was so attached to that property, as it was who I was. I was this guy. I was the bomb. I was the guy at 30 years old who was $30 million real estate portfolio, had 100+ properties, 9/11, taking trips, placing cobble, blah, blah, blah. To be honest, his ego. It was all my ego. Sad, right? Like hearing you say that, excuse me, it's crazy, man. I couldn't believe it. I can't believe it to this
You're
day.
not alone though.
No, you know what? I know I watch so many people build their real estate portfolio incorrectly.
Mm-hmm.
They get caught up in the hype. They follow the wrong people. They're listening to the wrong guidance. They get tied into agents who don't know what they're doing. I cannot tell you how many times I see an agent sell an out of province investor in Edmonton. Someone from BC, Toronto, wherever it is, an investor who wants to invest in Edmonton. This agent takes them and sells them a great house in the absolute wrong area, but the people don't know because they're not from there. And then they call me, my management company, after they close, saying, "Hey, I got to manage this. I got to rent out this house." Yeah. And the agent told me I can get $1,800 for it. When the truth is it's $1,400 and it's going to be vacant for 3 months because your tenant profile sucks.
Man.
It's a funny business, man.
Back in the day when we had our long conditional periods for inspection, I actually brought I brought the property manager with during the home inspection. You tell them what the rent is. Don't listen to me.
The number one mistake people make is they listen to their realtors, their agents for rental advice. And people need to understand that if you're listening, if I'm an agent, and you should never believe me because I need to sell a house in order to make money. So, and I'm not saying every agent does it. So don't start ripping me and you're an agent. And there's lots of really great agents out there. The good ones say, I don't know. Here's what I think it is. Here's 3 numbers of property management companies. Go interview them. Go call them. Here's PadMapper. Here's Rent It Faster. GottaRent.com. Here's the research. Go put up a ghost ad. Go figure it out. I can't be on the hook for it. But unfortunately, most agents just say, "Here's your rent. Here's your pro forma," and people just take it at face value and they believe it, and then they get screwed.
Here's your zoning. That basement crack looks okay.
Oh my God! I can't even tell you how many times I see. Oh yeah, no, you're good, and then they close on it and it's not zoned right. It's like, but what people need to understand is that once that sale happens, that agent's gone. So if you can't get $1,800 a month rent, they're going to come back and say, "Oh, the market changed," or "I didn't know," or "I thought you researched it," or, because they're not going to say, "Hey, I messed up. Here's your money. I'm going to buy that house from you. I'll take it back." You can't return a house.
No.
Unfortunately.
But let's go back to more towards. I beat up enough on agents on this show, so I'm interested more in your lessons because not everyone's willing to share lessons from downturns. Not enough people have been through it either. What were some of the major takeaways? Were you buying the wrong property? Because I've actually had a lot of the people who went like 0 to 50 really quick. Often that's the first thing they said. They bought they were buying the wrong property for the tenant they wanted. That's the way I want to say it.
Well, I can tell you this. Most people do not understand who their client is before they go buy a business. And the business is the house. The client is the tenant. And they don't understand there's a lot. I see it all the time. People come in and they want to rent to a young professional. And the young professional average income, say $80,000 to $120,000. They're married, maybe a young couple, a couple young kids, something like that. But then they go buy a house in the hood, and it just doesn't work. They don't want to live there, or they want to rent to people who have X cars or X whatever, and then they go buy a house where you can't get a trailer there or whatever it is, right? So I'm a big believer. Like, I have coaching clients. I've lost what I do is, this is a little plug for me, just so you know right now. I have a personal coaching program. It's called Tilt Investment Property School. And I take 12 investors on an 8-month journey, and I teach them everything that I've learned in the last 18 years. And I teach it to them in 8 months. They get me one-on-one. I go see houses with them. I find them deals. They get my lawyers, agents, everything. They get my, and what I tell all of my coaching clients is go find your areas. Don't find them on MLS. Most people will turn to MLS or realtor.ca and they'll start looking there to try to find the houses. That's the worst thing to do. What you need to do is you can go start there. Sure. Go pick a couple and then start shopping start living in those areas. I'm not saying sleep there, but live there. Go eat in the pizza places. Go get coffee there. If they don't have a Starbucks there, for example, the tenant profile just from that amount of information right there is different. You don't see Starbucks in the hoods. You see Tim Hortons, you see Max's, you see McDonald's, A&W's, right? So Starbucks spends many millions of dollars on marketing to understand your user profile, their client profile, and they know that if you're spending $3.50 for an Americano, you have some cash to be able to afford a $3.50 coffee. So what I tell all my coaching clients is go shop at Safeway, go shop at the drugstores, go walk the streets at 2:00 in the afternoon and 2:00 in the morning. Park your car overnight and see what happens to it. If you come back the next day and all your tires are gone, if they're gone, you might not want to buy there. Go get a dog and walk this dog down the street and run into as many neighbors as you possibly can. And hopefully they have dogs, because if they have dogs, what do dogs do? They smell bums and they get to know each other. And as they're smelling each other's bums, and you can actually talk to the owner and get to know, that's how you get to know where you want to invest. It's not by looking on MLS or listening to some, your realtor or whoever it is, right?
Mm-hmm. That's not enough depth if you want to be hardcore about knowing your stuff.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. No, I remember one time we were trying to buy in an up and coming area, and it was like, is this the hood or is this an up and coming area? Mm-hmm. So I actually asked the staff in the Tim Hortons, and I, being sexist, I deliberately asked the women, "Do you feel safe walking around here at night?" Right, and the answer was consistently yes. Like, okay, we can buy the house across the street.
Well, that's not being. I don't think that's being sexist. That's just being.
In this world, everything's bad.
Yeah, I guess so. But that's a fair question, and there's men are wired to be macho, right? And women, and women, not that they're not wired to be macho. It's just women have a sense of security and a sense of safety, and they vibrate differently than men do. Mm-hmm. Men have blinders, and we don't necessarily see fear or feel fear because we'll convince ourselves that we're strong and we can fight through it. So asking a woman is not being sexist. That's actually a smart play because they feel things differently. Mm-hmm. And so they'll actually give you the truthful answer. Whereas if you ask a man, hey, do you feel safe here? Of course I feel safe here. What are you talking about?
I can take care of myself.
Ego kicks in. You know what I mean?
I can take care of it.
Yeah. No, that's a good play, man. So back in the day, I was buying properties that were 10 to 15 years. I made a couple of mistakes. I made two crucial mistakes back in the day growing my portfolio. Number one, I was buying 10 to 15-year-old properties. And back then, the concept, my thought process was the education I was getting, the way I was taking it, was if I bought a 10 to 15-year-old property, the roofs were good, the windows were good, the furnaces were good. So I wouldn't see these long-term expenses. But the problem with that is I was also being taught to hold on to the property for 25 years, which is a common mistake every investor makes. No one should ever hold on to a rental property for 25 years, period. It's 8 to 10 years, get rid of the property. And I can get into that later if you want. So I was buying these properties 10 to 15 years old. Fast forward, that was in 2005, 2003 to 2005, I exploded my business. So fast forward 10 years later, 2008, say, or 2018, say, 2017, 2016, 2017, Alberta's in a recession. So I can't sell these things, which leads into mistake number two. I couldn't sell these things because I refinanced most of them in 2008. In 2008 and 10, I restarted refinancing my properties, which was crucial mistake number two. And I'll give you two examples here in a second. So mistake number two led back to mistake number one in 2015, 16, when the market started dropping, 2017, where I couldn't sell it. My payments were high because I refinanced it. The interest rates were low, thank God. But now furnaces started going, roofs started going, windows were gone. I lost all the wow factor from my houses. So my cost to repairs went through the roof in 2016, 17, and 18. Because I had these properties that were now dinosaurs. They were 20, 25 years old. And they were just, life expectancy of stuff was wearing out. So the new way of investing is this. I only buy houses that have suites in them. That's it. If it doesn't have a suite, I don't touch it. That's not true either. I would touch it, but I'm two for the price of one. You get 2 units for the price of one. If one's vacant, one's rented, I'm break even or pretty close to break even. My risks are a lot lower. When it's fully rented, my cash flow is significant. But not only that, my long-term plan of selling it is enhanced. So my options to sell it are greater, because as mortgage rates continue to rise, as mortgage qualifying rules change, as house prices start going up, it's going to be harder for people to qualify. So if I have a product that is suited, now all of a sudden they're income helpers and someone will live upstairs, rent on the basement.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how we've changed that. The other thing, back to mistake number 2, I never refinance houses anymore. I have 2 portfolios. I have one portfolio with one of my partners where we have 20 or 30. And then I have my portfolio where I have like lots. And so the portfolio that I have refinanced maybe 25% of that portfolio ever over the last 15, 17 years of investing. I've only refinanced like 25% of it. All the rest of it, I've been buying down debt, buy down debt, buy down debt, buy down debt, to the point where, like in the next 2 years, in the next year and a half to 2 years, I'm going to start taking these mortgages out. And we've increased payments, and we're doing balloon payments. And so in a year and a half, my first mortgage comes off. And then 6 months later, my next one comes off. And then all of a sudden it's going to go to 2 come off, and then 4 come off, because we're going to redeploy all that cash flow down to this debt. So that was one flight path of a portfolio with that I own. The other partner that I have, every 5 years, he wanted to refinance the property. So we did something called a step mortgage back in the day with Scotiabank, where as you buy down the debt, they give it to you via line of credit. Mm-hmm. So every 5 years, we would go back and pull out all of that money and cut him a check for, call it $250, cut me a check for $250. I took my $250 and bought down my debt. He took his $250 and did something else. Didn't buy down debt, didn't reinvest, with no idea what he did. So now fast forward to 2017, we still have the portfolio. In 2017, we each injected $176,000 into our account. Each. Dude, that's $350,000 we lost in that portfolio. I just sent him another email today of another cash call, a $4,000 cash call for losses that we're projecting for next month. 2 months ago, we did a $17,000 injection. This year, in 2018, our year ends are different. So this fiscal year, we're probably going to inject $150,000 of cash into this account. So why are we doing that? Well, we have to, because he doesn't want to sell them. I don't want to sell them. My portfolio is so flush over here. What I call Hope Properties is so flush that it can afford to offset the losses on this portfolio. His situation might be a little bit different. So, but that's just 2 ways of building your portfolio. One is refinancing, right. Always keeping it leveraged out.
Right.
Whereas the other approach is what I took, is I just buy them down, to the point where in probably 5 years, I'm going to have 75% of my portfolio clear title. And, let's put it this way. I do about $218,000 a month in rent from that portfolio. Now, 75% of that's going to be clear, no more debt. So all of a sudden my cash flow is going to pop like this. And I'll be 45 years old, 46 years old. So, I'm not saying, here's the problem. We didn't know any of this stuff when we started out. Refinancing it, taking the money out, seemed like the smart play. We even refinanced money. I've even refinanced properties and given money back to the joint venture partners, because my commitment was to get them paid back as fast as possible. So we were refinancing, giving money back, and I was doing it with my partners. I have partners with this guy, and then I have partners on my own, and then I have my own portfolio. My own portfolio was just buy down debt. My portfolio with my partners was refinance, give them the money back, refinance, keep on doing that, and then keep the values high, and then play for appreciation only. Cash flow and appreciation. That's what we were playing for. And once again, going back to 2003, we knew no different. Nobody was telling us anything different. We had no followers. We had no guidance.
Yeah. Especially ones that didn't have any anyone that had experience of going through a full cycle,
Nobody.
especially a
You know,
significant down cycle. Like you guys get hit pretty hard. Like, this isn't political, but if
well,
you're an Edmonton landlord, an
It's
NDP government followed by a Liberal majority at the federal level is not
good.
favorable to an Edmonton landlord. Like you guys
It's
got
not good.
double.
Like it's not good at all. And there is a huge light at the end of the tunnel though in Alberta right now. The opportunity in Alberta, I think, is back to 2003. We're at almost the same level of 2003. If you compare house prices compared to income, inflation, if you compare oil now to back then, 2003 was a great opportunity to get in. Excuse me. 2003 was a great opportunity to get in. 2019, excuse me. 2019 is just like 2013. And the political world is going to shift in Alberta. And NDP is, excuse me, for all intents and purposes, in my opinion, will be gone by May. And if NDP get out, regardless if they stay or get out, it doesn't actually matter because the UCP, the party, competitive party, they're pushing pipeline, they're pushing reduced royalties, they're pushing fighting the carbon tax, they're pushing fighting Trudeau. So that's a big movement right now. And all of the Albertans are sitting there saying, yeah, okay, yeah, rah, our economy sucks, let's change it. Rachel Notley, if she doesn't start singing the same tune, she's going to lose her seat. She's going to lose her job. She's fighting for her job right now. So she's actually going to start changing her NDP views a little bit to a more conservative platform. Otherwise, she's going to lose her seat. She's going to lose her job because Albertans are sick of it. So once that happens, all of a sudden, Alberta's going to start. We're going to see. I think we'll actually slip into another recession a little bit because he's going to have to lay off people to cut costs. Jason Kenney, and then we're going to start seeing Alberta sliding back up. And then the federal election, that's the unknown beast. Can Scheer come in and knock off Trudeau? I don't know. I know the West is pro. We're all blue out in the West. Really from Ontario out. You could make a case that Ontario's blue now with Ford, right? So I don't know. At the end of the day, none of that matters, to be honest with you. If you buy the right house with the right cash flow, with the right flight path, you're going to have success in no matter what market you invest in, a hot or cold. It doesn't matter.
Right. Like because you've been able to make it work the last 4 or 5 years anyways. And again, the things weren't in your favor at all.
Totally. Here's the thing, you can the market can be really, really bad and you can still make it work. You're getting houses for discounts. Rents are still relatively strong compared to house prices. So you're still cash flowing. You got to change the product you're buying. So you can't be buying, 20-year-old houses that are unrenovated in a down market because people want fully renovated stuff. So you got to pay a little bit more money. So your cash flow goes down a little bit, sure. But you can put more money down to increase your cash flow if you want to reduce your risk. If you're young enough, you can be leveraged out and just play smart, impeccably manage it. But there's still a lot of great properties in Alberta. There's lots of opportunity. You look at right now, I can go, if someone wanted to buy a house, I can go find them a house for $800 to $900 a month cash flow. Think about it first. No, that's unreal. You can't get that in Toronto. You can't get that in Vancouver. You're not getting that in Kelowna where I live.
Just pay 100% cash down. You got it. You got your cash flow.
Whereas here I can go get you a $470,000 house. It's going to cost you $94,000, 20%. You're going to cash flow $700 to $800, $900 a month.
Right.
And plus your mortgage buy down of $10,000 a year. You're going to make $20,000 a year.
In your example, what are the rents?
So your total rent would be $3,200. So $1,600 up, $1,400 down, a couple hundred for a garage. And so you're going to be $3,200 total income. So let's put that in perspective. Back in 2014, that house, the rent would have been about $4,000. And, so your cash flow was $1,500 a month back in the day. Whereas if right now we're seeing the lowest rent, comparatively with inflation and the dollar and housing and all that stuff, we're seeing the lowest rents that I've seen ever since I started investing.
Right.
And we're still finding properties that cash flow really well with way more upside than Ontario or Toronto. Maybe not Ontario, but Toronto. Way more upside than Vancouver.
Right.
Vancouver house prices are starting to drop. There's 30% more volume today than ever before. They have a record number of people who can't requalify for their mortgages because their rates are too high.
Mm-hmm.
They like it's not a good situation when things have when the market's done what it's done in those two cities.
Mm-hmm.
The other part of the problem is these two cities are going like this, and the rest of the country is going like this. But they're still playing to the tune of this, so they keep on increasing interest rates to control these two cities, but they're hurting these other cities.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it sucks to be first-time buyers in every other city.
Oh, which is why I buy suited houses. So if you buy suited houses, like that's not going to go away.
Mm-hmm.
You look at Toronto, you look at Vancouver, like suited houses sell like that to homeowners because now they can have an income helper.
Mm-hmm.
That's not really the case yet in Calgary or Edmonton, but it will be as house prices start rising. They're going to rise. Like real estate in the last 25 years in Edmonton has gone up 5.9% on average in the last 25 years. Okay, so we're on a down run right now, but odds are it's going to go up 5.9% over the next 25 years.
I'm hoping we can start doing coach houses soon, like a third unit in the backyard.
Totally.
But I want to ask you some questions around scaling because we don't have many guests that can talk to that subject. What came first for you, the construction crew or the property management in-house?
Good. The property management. So in 2008, in August 2008, I fired my property management company.
Yeah.
Because the market started dropping, my vacancy rate started going up. I was calling my property management company, asking them simple questions. How many showings am I getting on my vacant units? What's the feedback? And the answers were always, I don't know. What do you mean you don't know how many showings? What do you mean you don't know the feedback? So then their suggestion was always, well, you got to reduce the rent $300 to rent it out, or else it's not going to renting. And here's what I've come to realize. Property management companies make their 10% when the place is rented. So the only rush urgency they have is to rent it out for whatever they got to get it for. They don't care about $300. So that's only $30 to them.
Mm-hmm.
But that $300 is the difference between red and black to me. Black being positive cash flow, red being negative cash flow on a balance sheet.
Mm-hmm.
So I fired my management company in August and I took on the self-management of it, my wife and I. And that was part of, it's probably part of our downfall back in 2010 because we were so big and we had no systems and structure and foundation, no staff, I was driving 4 hours to check on properties, and I was like, it was just a blur those 2 years. And so in 2000,
slow the transition.
Totally right.
We'll take these 5 houses.
I just walked in. No, I did inspections on these houses.
Sorry, how many properties did you take over when you fired your
at one time? I bet you it was 110. But listen, Erwin, I had to. I went up there. I went up and did inspections on these houses. I inspected 13 or 14 houses. And walls were half painted. They painted my walls from white to brown, but the walls were half painted. So you could actually see roller marks halfway up the wall. Electrical outlets were not covered up. They didn't have the cover on them. And there's kids running around. Kids could have put their fingers in them. Yards were ruined. Doors were broken. Tenants weren't being taken care of. And that's just not who I'm about. And that's not how I wanted things done. And that's not how I wanted people to see me. Not that they knew me, but that's not what I wanted. So we were forced to fire them on the spot. So I had no choice but to fire them because I inspected these properties and I drove down to the office that day and I said, "You're fired." And she's like, "Well, we need notice." I said, "Yeah, it's just cause because in the contract I have a right to terminate on 5 days notice." I said, "Here's your 5 days. I want my keys right now." And
110 sets of keys.
It was such a mess. They didn't have keys, and I didn't have lease agreements because they were in all their names. I didn't get application forms because they were proprietary. They couldn't give them to me. It was such a mess. So we started up our management company in 2010, based off of all the mistakes that I made over those 2 years and the lessons I learned and the systems we created. And then we launched a company called Landlord Rescue in 2010. And we did that for 2 years before we changed the name to our Landlord Resource Center. But then in 2012 was when I flipped my first house. And in 2012, at that point, I had a couple of maintenance guys. And 2012, I had a bunch of maintenance guys and the market was good. And it was November. And nobody moves in November, December, January in Alberta because it's too cold. So I had these guys, and I don't ever lay anybody off. That's just not what I do. Like if they commit to me, I commit to them, and we're gonna go do this. So in 2012, in November, I bought a house, and because I had to keep these guys busy, and I didn't know anything about flipping, I knew nothing about it. So I bought this house for $156,000 in Devon, Alberta, which is about 45 minutes outside of Edmonton. Renovated it, fixed it, sold it for 235. Okay, so I made 35 grand, and I'm like, yeah, that was cool. Let's do it again because the market's still slow. Put these guys to work. I don't care if I make money. My realtor, Keith Faria, found me a house for $200,000, renovated it, sold that for 370, and I put 100 grand into that. So we made $70,000 off that house. But that was the last home I ever renovated. I will never do a home again because that house actually took 3 months to sell. And because people were walking in and they didn't like the color, they didn't like the direction of the backyard, they didn't like the big poplar tree in the middle of the yard, they didn't like the color of the shingles, they didn't like the color of the countertop, whatever it was. So they never bought it.
Yeah.
And they ended up selling it, which is great. Someone came along and bought it. And from that house on, I switched to investment purpose properties because what I am great at, I have to be one of the top producers in the country. And I don't know that to be true. I'm not saying that to be cocky or, egotistical at all. But the truth is I'm very good at this arena. So at that point, we switched into investment purpose houses, turnkey. So we started buying houses to legalize the basement. And now when we renovate them the way I wanted them done. Nobody else does this. It's weird. So we soundproof them. We move the plumbing. We all the windows, everything. We don't use stainless steel appliances. Everybody uses stainless steel appliances. I use black. Stainless steel appliances, when appliances break in 5 years, they're 30% more than a black appliance. So black appliances go in. We don't do stainless steel. Everything's cost effective. We don't use cheap flooring. We use mid-grade flooring because it lasts longer. We don't use cheap handles. We use mid-grade. Whereas renovators who understand the theory of renovating, they go in and they cut corners, they cheap on products because they have to drive up their cost or their profit. So we renovate these houses with the point of buying them, renovating them, renting them, then selling them. In the event that they don't sell, I keep it because I'm an investor. This is the world I play in. I know my tenant profile. I know everything. The other thing that I'm very adamant on is I don't sell a house until I've already bought it. A lot of people out there will say, okay, here's Erwin, you want to buy? Okay, great, good. I'm going to go buy you a house. So integrity there could get challenged because I could go buy a house in the worst part of town and you're already committed to buying that house. So I can go buy it and renovate it. Now, when I'm done with it, you're stuck with it.
Right.
So what I do is I go buy the house. I don't even look for a buyer until I've closed on it because now that's the only way to make sure that I'm always buying the right house in the right area, right location, close to transit, close to development, not, close to Starbucks and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So now in the event I have to keep it, I know my tenant profile 100%, and I'm going to have success with that property. The property management company came first in 2010. In 2012, we launched our renovation company.
And how many staff today for your PM company and your construction company?
Well, total, we have about 18.
What's the split between the two?
Well, they kind of blend. Like when my maintenance guys are slow, they pop into my renovation. When the management side has big jobs, my crews take. It's kind of mixed. I also have a realtor. I have a realtor division, like a real estate sales division. I have a collections division, so we do in-house collections now. I have my education division, so they all kind of blend into each other.
Yeah.
So it's so hard to say this division has 4 and this division has 1 and this division has 6.
How many would just be back office? So dealing,
so in my office,
managing your tenants.
I'd probably have about 10 in the office. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, I would have 10, including myself.
Got it. Very cool. So this has been coming up a lot more frequently with people who flip. Um, how do you maintain quality standards? Uh,
Yeah, very
your
hard.
intention is to keep it, so that's partly your worst case is you're planning to keep it, so that's probably part of your safeguard.
Yeah. So quality management is very hard. I hire out third party inspectors, not property inspectors, like reno guys. And I'll have my reno guys come in. Well, a couple things. One, I use the same trades. I use the same trades over and over and over again. Like these are my people. And I've already vetted them. I know the quality of work. I know what they do.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a level of trust that's been created. However, we still inspect. So I check on every property at every stage. So when it's after demo, I do the inspection on the foundation. I also bring in another guy to do the inspection on the foundation, check for cracks and stuff like that. After it's framed, I don't know much about framing, but I bring in a guy to check about framing. The electrical is pretty self-explanatory because that gets inspected by the city. HVAC is inspected by the city. Gas is inspected by the city. Plumbing, once the plumbing's in, there's no inspection of final plumbing. It's just the rough grade is where it stops. So I get a guy to come in and check the plumbing, just make sure the plumbing lines and check all the heads and all that stuff. I probably spend $500 to $700 project on third party inspectors.
Sorry,
Checking
how
on
much?
jobs.
Sorry,
$500 to $700 per job. Just checking on.
that's not bad.
No, it's cheap. Like
And
there's
home inspection's almost that much.
yeah, totally. And then when we sell a house, so I buy a house, we do the demo. After the demo, I insist, they don't always do it, but I insist that my buyers inspect the house at the point of after demo. Because I don't want to, the mistake people make is they'll buy this new renovated house, they bring in an inspector, but all the mistakes are hidden. You don't see anything. So I want my clients to come in and inspect the house when it's bare. Let's demo it so that your inspector can see the foundation. They can see the drainage. They can see the floor joists. They can see the wiring. They can see the plumbing. They can see, let's show them everything before we board it up. So now they can come back and say, you got to put more insulation in the attic. Okay, great. No problem. We'll, $1,500. We'll spray it in. No problem. That's part of the rental. We'll do that. Mm-hmm. Or, there's a crack in that foundation. Okay, well, great. We'll 2-part epoxy that. Like, let's catch all that stuff before we board it. And versus, walking into a finished product and trying to buy it and then do a home inspection. All they do is go around and check these plugs and check the door. Oh, this door closes really good. Oh, it's rubbing a little bit. Like, come on. Mm-hmm. That's silly.
It's all superficial stuff. Yeah.
Totally. But that's all they can do because that's all they can see. Yeah.
They can't go back home to put their foot through the wall.
They can't do it, right? Well, they could, but they have to buy it
now. Jared would not be very happy with you if you put your foot through his wall to inspect what's behind the wall.
Not at
all. Jared, so you've talked about like your low point because we're running out of time. What's life like now?
Oh man, unbelievable. I was telling you before we started, I took a coaching job. I'm coaching hockey at the Okanagan Hockey Academy. We moved to Kelowna 4 years ago, for lifestyle. And, life's good. My kids are 13 and 11. For a while there, I was wondering if my kids actually knew what we did because they'd go to school, we'd take them to school, they'd be home, and we'd be home. I don't think they actually thought we had jobs. I don't think they actually really understood how we made money because we're always around compared to their friends in school and all that stuff. Right. Yeah. And so I'm coaching a hockey team now part-time, I guess. Like I'm just an assistant coach. So I do that every afternoon, from 12 to 4, 12 to 5, I go to the hockey academy and I'm coaching there and I'm coaching my daughter, which is fantastic. I'm putting on workshops. I do a lot of workshops out of Alberta now. So I have my own education program I run out of Alberta.
What's it called? Where can people find it?
Well, it's tips, just under Tilt, sorry. My Tilt property group, if you went to my Facebook page or my website, everything's on my Tilt. Tiltgroup.ca is my website. And, I have my coaching program. I got a client in this coaching program from Cabo, 2 from BC, 2 from Calgary, and we run it out of Edmonton, but it's all over Zoom, Zoom calls. And, life's good, man. We don't have much stress. anymore. Sleep at night.
Mhm.
I can pay my grocery bills. I don't have to worry about that. I'm looking at buying a 911 GTS 2019 right now. I'll probably buy that in March. Pay cash for that. And
Nice.
it's good, man. I just bought a boat. We spend a lot of time on the lake here in the Okanagan because the lakes are spectacular. And so, yeah, it's getting good.
That's awesome. We were talking about 10X before we started recording. So
Yeah.
Grant Cardone bought that. His goal was he'd only buy that rolls that he had, the one that he wrapped. He'd only buy it if he could pay for it with 1 week's passive income.
No, that's a totally different world, man. Like Grant Cardone is like, I love that guy. And it's funny, when I started out about a year and a half ago, I hired a marketing company out of Vancouver. Wow Branding is what they're called. They're fantastic. And so I hired this marketing company and to change my brand and my image. And we went from Landlord Resource Center to Tilt Property Group. And so we created this brand. And when we sat down with the guys, we're like, what do you want? Like, who do you want to mimic and who do you want to be like? And I'm like, Grant Cardone. And so I went and got cameras and screens and video stuff. And I have this studio, if you will, in my house.
Yeah.
And it was awesome. I didn't really do it. It was pretty much a waste of money, but it was fun to buy. But yeah, Grant Cardone's fantastic.
When he releases the date, block it off. I plan on going.
Well, like I was telling you before, I wanted to go in Vegas and we just couldn't pull it off. And then Miami showed up and we had a hockey commitment with my daughter. So I have a job now, man. Like I got staff meetings and I haven't had a job in 18 years. And so it's pretty fun. It's a lot of fun.
Very cool. Jared, thank you so much for your time. Sorry for going over. This has been awesome.
Well, no,
I'll be back for part 2 pretty soon.
Listen, anytime, man. Like I love this stuff. My commitment is to impact people's lives through real estate. And our values, my core values are loyalty, ownership, freedom, and truth. And I'm fair game. You ever want to guest, reach out. I'm in short notice. I'm in. You want to hear the truth? Just ask the question. I'll give it to you. I've made a lot of mistakes, and I don't want people to make them. If I can prevent a handful of people from making those mistakes, that's good.
You have 5 minutes to talk about what happened. Why you're not speaking on the Rain stage anymore?
Yeah, I started in Rain in 2010, and
on stage.
On stage, yeah, I was a Rain member in 2003, and Patrick bought it, and Patrick was my partner in real estate. He moved, and I got involved in Rain. I started speaking, and along the way, what I did is I created a lot of competition for me a little bit, because I'd be up on stage telling people what I was doing, how I was doing it, why I was doing it, how to rent, how to do this, how to renovate. And next thing you know, my renovation business, as it's growing, it started getting a lot of competition because other people were trying to do it. Couple differences though. I was doing 15 to 18 a year. These people were doing 1 to 2 a year. I was doing it in masses. I was doing it in volume. Fast forward to 2015, 16, I was traveling a lot, with Rain. I was, I was away from my family. I was, I changed the direction of my company to the point where my business, to the point where we're becoming a little bit more flush with cash. And Rain was going in a direction I couldn't align with. I was starting to see similar speakers on Keyspire stage as Rain stage. So that I didn't like that. I didn't like, some of the directions that, the recycling of, investors' money or trying to keep on tapping into that. I didn't like that. Like, here's the thing, like, I understand the business. Like the business, they're a very good company. They're a very good education business. I was getting out of alignment of who I wanted to be. And I was turning into this person that was all about the show and all about them and all about supporting them and helping them grow their business. That I was actually losing sight of my business and my family.
Right.
In 2015, I started drinking a lot. In 2014, I was drinking a ton because I was on the road a lot. And I'd leave the stage and, I'd always think I did a good job, but it was never good enough. And they wanted more and they wanted more. So I'd go to the bar and I'd have a couple beers, and next, it's 5, 6, 8 beers, and and then I'd go to another city, 5, 6, 8 beers, another city, 5, 6, 8 beers, another city, and so that really wore on the relationship a lot, and my wife's relationship, our relationship, and just in 2016, I just couldn't do it anymore, and so we just parted ways, and to be honest, it was probably going to come to a head anyways, just because they were going, they were bringing in other agents, they were doing other deals with agents, it was just time to go. That's all I can say. I don't regret my time with Rain. I had a lot of good memories and a lot of good people I met there. But I'm more of a practical teacher. I can't be on stage for 30 minutes telling what I do, because it doesn't do it justice. I need a platform. I need 3 hours to tell people what I do.
Mm-hmm. Well, really more. Your coaching is more than that, right?
Yeah, totally. But
3 hours, you're good.
Yeah, like I'm putting on a one-day event February 23rd in Edmonton, and it is seriously a practical event. I'm bringing in people who are actually playing the game, not talking about it. We're diving deep. I'm answering every question. I want to do a room where if I make a comment and someone doesn't understand, they raise their hand and say, "Hey, I don't get that." And now I can answer that on the spot. Whereas when you talk to a room of 500, 600 people, it's impossible. Mm-hmm. So many things get miscued and misunderstood that create failure when people go off and try to do it. Mm-hmm. So I want a platform. Maybe one day I'll circle back to Rain. Maybe we come back and and do business together. Maybe. I don't know. I'm open to it. I loved Rain. I loved the theory, the concepts, the education that they had. Mm-hmm. I loved all that. I love the people. Patrick and Stephanie are fantastic. Don's amazing. Richard's Richard. Like he's lively and he's bubbly and he's good. So I hope one day we circle back. But it was just time to take a break.
All right. When you're in town, let me know.
Yeah. Well, how about this next event you guys put on? Why don't I come out?
We'll have to talk for dates. We're juggling speakers right now.
Okay, well, if you ever need a speaker, like I'm just 4 hours away. It's pretty easy to get to.
Just 4 hours away. I love it. Because I have Denise and I have people from Ottawa coming in and like, oh, you're coming in? I'm putting you on stage then.
Yeah, absolutely. No, listen, if you ever, like, obviously I need notice. I just can't do it for like 30
minutes. Of course.
Like it's pretty chill. Like I'm pretty chill, man. Like it's life's really, really great right now.
That's so awesome. Especially after, that's a tough moment. Especially for like an alpha male, like, admittedly I have an ego too, and I don't accept charity myself. I give to charity. I don't accept charity.
Totally.
Yeah, that'd be tough for anyone who's in the same boat and same mindset as you. They totally get it.
And for the people that don't, like, it's so funny. People used to sit back and say, "Oh, come on, how bad can it be? You got it. You this." But the truth is, like, your mind is your worst friend. Like your mind, no one should ever listen to their brain. Like their brain can convince them to buy a car when they don't need the car. Yeah. They convince them to go buy a pair of shoes when they don't need the pair of shoes. They can convince them to take a trip when they can't afford it. And, but it's all real. It's my world. It's my view. And I suffer, you suffer, we all suffer. It doesn't matter how much money you have. The pain's still the same. Mm-hmm. And the feeling of going broke is still the same. The feeling of not paying a bill or letting down your wife is still the same. Mm-hmm. And, one thing I vow is I'll never put my family into a position where they have to hurt or suffer again, ever. And that's ego. That ego would put them into that situation. Mm-hmm. So I got to check the ego, got to manage it, leave it aside, and just keep on doing what I think is right every day.
Right. I need to flip more properties. Keep my cash flow. Can't just keep over leveraging this shit.
Don't do that, man. At some point, you're going to get caught.
I know.
So my advice strongly is don't get over leveraged. We're too old. Like I'm 41. I don't know how old you are, but
39. I'm 40 next month.
Yeah, like what? If we're 22, man, I'd be like, yeah, leverage yourself out, play the game. But 40. I look at my mindset at 40 is really that of a 60-year-old. I don't want to lose it. Everything I worked so hard to do, I don't want to lose it. So now it's about playing smart, investing smart, being smart. Yeah. And, and in order to do all that, I need to check my ego, because if the minute my ego gets in, now I'm vibrating from a different level, and I'll make, I might buy something I shouldn't buy. I might take a risk when I shouldn't take the risk, because I'm done taking chances, done with it.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. A lot of great tips, and I hope their listeners appreciate.
Yeah, totally.
All right. Thank you, Jared. If you wouldn't mind, email me any websites or Facebook links that are useful to you to share in the show notes.
Yeah, great. Thanks for having me, buddy. I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks very much.
Yeah, ciao.
Bye-bye.